faith, family and freedom in Cuba, Belgium, Brazil, Congo, UK and all over the USA to crowds from 14 to 40,000. International leadership speaker, trainer and coach. Author of Learn to Raw Leadership, Attitude Hack, Live a More Excellent Life, 5 Battle Strategies of a Victorious Warrior. 2021 President's Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. Founding partner of the John Maxwell team. Toastmaster International Speech Competition semi-finalist. Founder of Tell It Like It Is TV, ThatGuyRocks.com and ThatGuySpeaks.com. Creator of Story Power TV, Transforming Grace TV, and Leading Leaders Podcast. Producer of 4 TV programs and podcasts for Liftable TV and World Trumpet Television as well as multiple social media channels. Please help me welcome J Loren Norris.
When I was a kid, my mom swears I used to lie to get myself into trouble. Not out of trouble, into trouble. I would take blame for things that I didn't do, and I would even make up fantastic stories that the story itself was more grand than actually what went wrong, and that's usually how I got caught, fictionalizing an event into something that it really wasn't. I think it was probably because of that habit or practice as a kid that I have such a strong sense of fairness now. I tell people all the time, I don't care what the rules are as long as we all play by the same rules. You can even make them up in the middle of the game as long as whatever rule you apply to me also applies to you. But the more I study leadership and communication, the more I understand there are people who will use communication skills to manipulate, to lie, to deceive. And sometimes they'll do it straight to your face, knowing that what they're saying is untrue when they say it, and they're okay with that. Good leaders, transformative leaders, they understand that process, and they recognize it, and they defend against it. That's what I want to talk about today on Leading Leaders.
Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.
I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. And I can tell you, after 28 years of marriage, there was a season of my life that if you'd asked me straight up, hey, have you ever abused your wife? I would have said, no, absolutely not. It's not in my nature. I have always been a chivalrous kind of a guy. I believe that guys should protect girls, males should protect females, men should protect women, however you want to verbalize that. But I've always believed that men have a responsibility to take care of the women in their life, sisters, cousins, aunts, mother, wife, children, all of them. And yet, about 10 years in, I began to live through a revelation of my own life and who I was and how the things that I had said and the things that I had done were not good. Not good at all. I had a really hard time owning up to the fact that what I had been doing was harmful. I didn't realize the words alone were harmful. But the more time I've spent studying leadership communication, and the more I realize how you can plant a seed. Oh yeah, speakers do it all the time from the stage. They'll plant the seed of an idea into the audience so that later when they come back to that seed, they're actually causing people to recall what they think is a memory, even though it was only planted just moments ago. They're causing people to recall an emotion from maybe decades ago and reignite that emotion with a seed that was planted just a few minutes ago. But by putting those two things together, they can cause someone to behave or react in a very controlled manner or an uncontrolled manner by causing them to do that. Tony Robbins calls it putting someone in a state. Now, if you've studied a lot of Tony Robbins, and I've studied a fair amount, you know that the whole concept of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, was really made popular by some of the teachings that Tony Robbins has brought to the public. Some really helpful practices for hypnotism and overcoming addictions and breaking habits that you don't want to have in your life are planted into NLP. Some of the tools of NLP can be very, very helpful in changing your life. And it's the reason that transformative leaders study NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. What does that really mean? Let me break it down just based on the meaning of the three words. Neuro, the nerves, the pathway that your brain learns on. The neural pathways inside your brain are elastic or plastic. The neuroplasticity means that the pathways in your brain can be retrained, they can be altered, they can be redirected. Neuro-linguistic, a language-based training. So through the use of words, and sometimes not words, but behavior, eye movement, gestures, facial expressions, reactions, and then programming. Well, that kind of tells you all about it, doesn't it? Here's the beauty of neuro-linguistic programming, though. It's a two-way street. It can be both a read and a write process, meaning there are certain habits, tics, responses that are just natural to the human body that is untrained that will allow you to recognize that somebody is thinking about something or doing something or believing something that even if their words defy them, even if their words say, no, I'm thinking about something else, I believe something else, I'm not going to react to that. They can't stop themselves from blinking their eyes too fast or looking away when they're trying to avoid the answer or looking at different quadrants of the mind to remember, to recall, to imagine, to make up. And so you can read someone's responses to the things that you're saying based on the subconscious parts of the brain that they can't control. Unless you've already been trained in that. And if you've been trained in that, then you have the techniques necessary to defeat or defend against that read. But there's also a way, because we all pick up on it. Eventually, parents learn that their kids have a tell. When they're lying, they usually expose themselves. Maybe it's the giggle, maybe it's the laughter, maybe it's calling out somebody else's name, but they all expose themselves for the lies that they're telling. There's always a tell. Once you figure out what that tell is, you can almost bait somebody into telling a lie that will get them in trouble, that will cause them to lose credibility. Salespeople do it on a regular basis. Leaders, especially leaders who are manipulative leaders, some of them have learned the tips and the tricks of NLP and how to use them in communication. Some of others have just seen good speakers do it. Pastors do it, classroom teachers do it, educators do it, salespeople do it, politicians do it. They read the room, so to speak. They know how people are going to react to things that they're going to say, or how people should react to the things that they're going to say. And they modify their speech, their pace, even the tone, based on the results they want to get. Transformative leaders understand this process and this practice. Transformative leaders have taken the time to do the homework to not be hoodwinked by a great communicator who has an ill intent. Transformative leaders also know that there will be people that you will bring onto your team who have a very specific purpose, and that purpose might be communication. And if you're not cautious when you bring people onto your team who are experts in communication, you might find yourself and your team a victim of manipulative conversations, manipulative communication, deceptive, intentionally deceptive communication. People who have an ill intent from the time they join your team to destroy your team, to have espionage or some kind of a subterfuge inside your team for the purpose of bringing it down because they don't want to have to compete with you. Maybe they bring it in just to gather intelligence, and they come onto your team as a would-be newbie. And it appears to you that they don't know anything, and that's why they ask a lot of questions, but really they're asking a lot of questions to see just how much information you'll give up. TikTok has been accused of that. Yeah, the entire app has been accused of gathering data on American citizens since the day it was first brought into the U.S. via the Apple apps. Even today, we have congressional members who say that thing shouldn't be allowed, that app shouldn't be allowed because of the data it's gathering. But it's also using some of the same NLP tricks that good salespeople, therapists, and other communicators use to convince somebody that something is true that simply isn't true. TikTok has been very effective at planting ideas in the minds of young people. Other apps are doing the same thing, though. If you're a transformative leader, I want to make sure that you have challenged yourself to do the homework. Understand what these forms of manipulative communication look like. How would you recognize them if they came into your workplace? How would you recognize them if somebody were using those techniques on your team? How would you defend against them if you found that your team was falling victim to these manipulative forms of communication and these deceptions? What would you do to counter that? I call it leading the narrative. The narrative is a collection of stories. Those stories very intentionally laced together, planted together to bring a specific outcome. When people lead the narrative, whether it's through the news or through an app or through a long-term employment relationship, they can lead you to believe things that simply aren't true. And eventually you'll find, especially as a leader, you'll find that there are people inside and outside of your organization. They have no qualms at all about lying straight up. They'll tell you what they think they want you to believe. They'll tell you what you should believe. Even if it's not true, as long as what they tell you benefits them, they got no problem saying it. They also have no problem gathering enough people around that will lie with them about whatever the lie is. This manipulative form of communication is a lot more prolific than you think. And I want to challenge you as leaders to become more astute in the reading and writing of this manipulative communication so you can defend your organization against it. You're the last line of defense for a lot of people. They're caught up in the everyday language and the everyday conversation, and the more it's repeated, the more it seems to be true. I believe it was Goebbels who said, "Tell a big enough lie long enough and everybody will think it's the truth." Leaders, it's your job to discover the truth, to be aware of these manipulative formats, and to defend your organization against them. There's nobody left but you. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.